I'm not preaching to all y'all. I told you some of you have pristine lives. I just want to preach to the messy folk for a minute that God has you in some stuff. Place me in the middle of a mess. All, thank you, Ezekiel sees, this side tripping, let me go over here, is disconnection. Disconnected. I'm sorry. I got to be who I am. I just got to level with you and tell you the average person sitting here from the pulpit to the door is dealing with a disconnect. Yeah, they can't tell you because they got to fake it till they make it. They got to act like everything's okay because they can't carry the pastor's bag, or they admit they stuck on pornography. They can't be next to the first lady if she admits she's dealing with lesbianism. She can't even be near the church if she admits that she don't need to be on Usher's ministry. She need to be on I'm Nasty ministry. She can't admit that because the church, as much as they say, can't handle my hurts. Yeah, you tell me to come as I am, but you really don't mean it. Because when I tell you I'm nasty, you sit me down instead of ministering to me. But you preaching when you disconnect. There are people here in this room that are feeling disconnected. They're in messy stuff. Ezekiel was placed in this environment because these bones represent a metaphoric Israel. Look at her disconnected from her temple, her land, and her king. Look at her far away from God. Look at her particular existential plight. Look at her. She's all messed up. Ezekiel says, God says to him, you see these bones? That's how Israel looked. There are those of you in this room who are dealing with stuff. If I don't minister, I won't be able to sleep tonight. So y'all let me do this because I need you to understand, what do you do when you're married to a man who hugs the pastor and dogs you? Yeah, what do you do when you're single, watch this, and everybody you meet, watch this, act like they want you, but they really only want one part of you? The problem is you didn't just give them one part of you, you gave them your whole self. The problem is they didn't want your whole self, they only wanted one part of you. But since you released your whole self, there's a part of you that's floating around in some sort of atmospheric nowhere. This is why everybody you meet, you don't know who you are, and they don't know who you are, and you jump out of one thing into another because you're dealing with disconnect. Would you point down your row? Say, he's preaching to you, not me. Go ahead, tell him. Please catch this. What do you do when you are a pastor? And truth be told, Bishop, the only reason we still married is for ministry. Because if we could get out of it, we could, but how are we going to pay the note if we get out of this? How are we going to handle the YouTube stuff if we don't stick together? But Lord knows we really don't even like each other. There's a disconnect, but it's too much on the line to walk away, and it's painful to be in the house with somebody that you don't want to be with and they don't want to be with you, but you got to stay there because of what you wear on Sunday. It's tough. And everybody gets up and preaches to the sky instead of preaching to the righteous reality of people who are in ministry and disconnected. Who do you talk to about your husband when you're the first lady? Who do you talk to when you got to walk in and act like you're happy and you're one of the most hurt women in the church? Who do you talk to when you're the bishop and you got sons under you, but little do they know you struggle yourself and you're so busy fathering you don't get a chance to be father? And sometimes you need somebody to speak into your life, but there's nobody with the maturity to handle your issues. Who do you talk to when there's a disconnect? Verse 3, I gotta go. Verse 3, y'all pray for me. I just need the text to finish this. Verse 3, I just want to deal with a few verses in this, and I'm going to take my seat because he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? What do you do when God asks you a question? Oh, I feel like preaching this now. What do you do when God asks you a question. Son of man, can these bones live? Was there the potentiality for life in these lifeless frames? Now, this is not only theological, come here you guys, but it's also anthropological and ontological. You can't miss it because there are issues of existence here from that whole school of metaphysics. But then there's anthropology here, study of man, because there's no bones, there's no skin. How can skeletons get up? Then there's the metaphysical part of ontological stuff, because if they're dead, they don't exist. So how can they then exist again? That's ontological. Plus you have the theological construct that brings it all together. So if you don't know what you're looking at, you'll miss a whole lot. There are more than theological issues in this text. That is the overarching thing. But what do you do with the ontological and anthropological problem of bones with no skin, and God asking you, can dry bones disconnected live again? I'm not trying to be heavy, but I am preaching to preachers, and they want more than a Sunday school lesson. They want some pedagogical premise. They want to see something in the text they haven't seen. They flew too far to get a Sunday school lesson, and that's what's frustrating many of you, because you're watching somebody on TV that got traffic backed up for 2 cities, and he doing a Sunday school lesson. Here you are every Sunday building your message, and you know what you're doing. You're doing all type of hermeneutic process. You're building a bridge from the original audience to the contemporary audience. You're doing all type of stuff. You're doing redaction criticism. You're doing historical narrative criticism, trying to arrive at some hermeneutic understanding. He preaching about nothing and got it packed. And you're frustrated because you're in the middle of a mess and don't know what's going on. And the text asks this: can it live? Why would somebody who know everything ask anybody anything? Preach, R.A. I feel it by myself right now. So whenever God asks you something, he's never seeking information. He's trying to drop revelation. You know what? This sermon is going to hit you Tuesday. You get the tape, because I want you to understand, can these bones live? Now, Ezekiel, oh, I got to flow. Now, Ezekiel knew that from a pragmatic, practical perspective, it seemed humanly improbable, if not impossible. So to that end, his answer is somewhat guarded. I'm in a jam here. God just asked me a question. If I say yes, he may say I'm being presumptuous. If I say no, where's your faith? So Zeke comes up with the coldest answer in the Bible. You know. I feel like, whew, oh, I feel like preaching up in here, because I'm so glad I don't have to know everything that's happening in my life. I'm so glad I can praise him anyhow, because he knows my end from the beginning. Can I preach to about 75 people that's going through some stuff in your life, and sometimes you be in your kitchen crying, and your baby say, what's wrong, mama? You say, just keep on living. But then you look up to heaven and say, Lord, you know I can't handle all of this. Please sit down, please sit down, please sit down. I only got 9 minutes, sit down.